Okay, well, very nice to be here. Good fashion sense. Um, I hope everybody's dressed like I am and like he is from now on. Okay, so it's interesting to see the future of travel departing or being lift off from Barcelona, because if I read that, if I put myself in 1999 when we were deciding to start eDreams and we decided to start it in Barcelona, we would have thought that we did not succeed. If 26 years later we were reading the future of travel is starting from Barcelona. But anyway, so we chose Barcelona for many reasons that, looking back, they were completely the right reasons, but we were kind of a little bit in the dark. None of us were from Barcelona. I'm from Mexico. Javier Perez Tenesa is from Mexico / Madrid. Another James from the US. So we were lucky to choose Barcelona. So very, very happy to be here. The presentation is in English because I did not know what the kind of the common language would be. So I took a safe bet and it's in English. I'm just going to take, I think, about 20 minutes, not more. So we're right on time. And just talking about some general things. It's difficult to talk about travel tech in general because there's every single flavor, color, and category in the travel sector. So it's difficult to be speaking about such a big industry. So I hope to just talk about a few concepts, which I think that will resurface during the rest of the day. And thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a beautiful place. It's the first time I'm here in this building. So first, I'm not smart enough to live in the future. There are very smart people and very few people that do live in the future. And those are the people that create completely new category of products, completely new category of things, but they are very few and in between. So I would not dare to claim that I can predict the future. I mean, predicting things, it's difficult, and when you try to predict the future, it's even more. But anyway, so that's the one thing. But I think that what is more interesting is, let me see, what do I need to point? Okay, what is more interesting is just to see what is already changing, right? And that we all can figure that out, and also what is not changing, which is, I think, even more interesting. Sometimes we always obsess about the new shining thing. We don't really pay much attention to the things that do not change and that have not changed. And in the travel sector, that's a very valid kind of thing to keep in mind. And also what the implications on how we build companies are. So, of course, technology changes, but human nature doesn't, right? We have some basic needs that have been there, that continue to be there. So, on the one hand, there's rapid shifts in technology, and probably now the shift seems faster. It seems like in a completely accelerating way. But I think that if anybody was here 10 years ago, we would say the same thing. Technology is moving faster than ever. But I do think that now is particularly fast. And the constants is, trust, confidence, reducing pain for the traveler, reducing anxiety, touching the sense of curiosity of travelers. All that, those are core human needs that remain unchanged. So what changes is technology, and how technology is used to address those needs. One thing, if we look back at what we have done very well in the past, I don't know what happened here, but oh yeah, so we were extremely good at capturing demand, right? And this is more applied to more B2C type of companies. But we were very good at somebody signaling some idea of wanting to travel. And the best companies or leading companies today were able to think of that demand as a real estate thing. Like somebody types, searches, thinks about travel. Companies use as much digital real estate to convince you to visit them. So the whole optimization, conversion funnel, and that's the playbook that built the best companies today, or the largest companies. We were less good at creating demand, right? There's very few companies that we can think of today that have created a new category, that have created a new concept of, I can think of Airbnb again on the B2C, Airbnb at the beginning. So creating that demand is a very different game, and it's a game that involves product, involves experience, it involves inspiring and convincing people to come back. And that's a very different game. That's just capturing demand, and because the capturing demand is more of a transaction acquisition game. And I think that we're going to be moving from a transaction acquisition game to a customer acquisition and customer loyalty and things like that. So the old playbook is very clear, right? So it's conquering, dominating distribution. It's being extremely good at performance marketing, optimizing conversion, having a great supply, and that again, that's how most of the B2C category winners were. By the way, this I always think about the whole conversion optimization as, I don't remember who said it, but it's apt. I think about it, if you obsess about converting, about converting your optimization, your conversion funnel, you end up being a porn site, right? Which it has its truth. But anyway, so and the target there was acquisition, right? But acquisition of transactions, and then once you acquire that transaction, you're pretty much starting from zero to acquire the next transaction. You thought less about customers, you thought more about transactions. And that's what the system rewarded, right? And it's like volume, users, bookings, and your margins could be higher or lower, but that's what it was. And experience and loyalty came second. Again, I'm talking in general terms, but that's the norm, right? And here the consequence of that playbook is that there's a lot of interchangeable things. You end up having pretty much the same hotels, you end up having pretty much the same experience, the same similar prices, and you compete on how much money you can spend, how much you can outspend your competitors, and how you can completely optimize your conversion funnel. And again, the best companies today, the largest companies today are extremely good at that, extremely good at converting every single visit, signal, intention into a booking. But I think it's getting weaker, right? So we know that customer acquisition costs are very high. Dependency on, here I put Google, but the dependency of whatever it is, a meta on a meta channel or something else is very high. The level of differentiation and brand is lower, and there's little loyalty, I think, in general terms. So we are seeing, and I think that we will see a greater shift from the old, which is acquiring customers and optimizing transactions, to the new, which is more in terms of deserving that those customers decide to come back and generating demand and building that confidence in the customers that they prefer you, that they come back to you. And for that, I think that there's going to be 4 major battlegrounds or things that companies will need to be very good at and have very much present in their mind. And one is to answer the question of will people come back? And for that, I'm talking about loyalty and helping people decide, right? Can you help people choose? And that's about decision making. The third is, and I'm going to go very briefly into each one. The third is, can people trust what they see? We know that today, what you see is not necessarily what you think exists, right? And then distribution, who gets surfaced and by whom? That's changing massively right now. So all these four battlegrounds are helping people be more confident into who they choose and why they choose them. And so it's increasing confidence and reducing anxiety. And the first one is the whole loyalty, right? So, and here I crossed off program because we should not be thinking about loyalty programs. We should be, the points, it does create friction and makes it difficult to get out. That doesn't mean that you have customer loyalty, right? It's like being in jail. You're not loyal to jail. You just cannot leave, right? Or you have a mortgage. You're not loyal to the bank. You just have to keep on paying because of reasons outside of your control. But that's being loyal because it's difficult to get out. It's a different game. And here I'm talking about experience that creates having the experience and convincing customers to come back and to prefer you over others. And of course, these are extremely different types of loyalty. And going back to the confidence, what loyalty does is it just gives customers a very valid and good reason to come back. That's essentially it, the whole confidence concept. And Airbnb built a very, very strong sense of loyalty without any sort of loyalty program. I think it's one of the very few companies like OTAs that does not have a official or a proper loyalty program, but they probably have some of the most loyal customers out there. So no formal structure, but more experience-led. And is there somebody from Caravelo here? No. Yeah, you guys launched an interesting study or that analyzes a sense of loyalty of different brands. And for me, it was interesting to see how in that analysis, again, like Airbnb was very good, very high grades in loyalty, but interestingly, no formal points. So they've earned that loyalty by just doing things that we know that customers prefer. It's going to be hard to continue that, right? Because Airbnb is starting to look more and more like, they have hotels, they have product that is not that differentiated from what you find in other places, but they still can ride that wave of having more loyal customers. The second battleground is helping people decide. We know that when you go to a supermarket and see 40 types of soaps, it's difficult to choose which is the right soap for you. So that endless option creates friction and makes people anxious. Like, am I going to decide? Am I going to choose the right product or the right service for me? So being able to curate from this endless option or endless pool of inventory or product will gain more and more importance. I mean, it will build confidence in the user that they're choosing the right thing. And you also need to earn the trust that you're choosing you're curating in the right way for your market. Which again, like the curation depends on what market you're targeting, but the targeting the specific market, you need to be good at choosing for them, right? So helping people decide. So the next value here is having a good judgment in terms of how you choose, how you curate, what you're recommending, how you're recommending it, and that people can trust that what you're recommending is right for them. We all know that having technical competence, it's not an issue right now to build new features, to build new products, to build in general. You can do that easily. What the differentiating things are going to be more on the human side, right? So having the right judgment, the taste, the trust, those are very human-like qualities that so far AI cannot replicate. So the better curation gives travelers confidence that they're choosing well. And not only that they're choosing well, but also it gives travelers the confidence that they're choosing from the right company. And the third battleground is authenticity, right? So can travelers trust what they're seeing? That has changed a lot in terms of AI. Now immediately our first reaction is, this photo is fake or this video is fake, and that's kind of sad, but it's a case. So the harder it becomes to know what truth is and what reality is, the more valuable trust becomes, and the more importance to brands, and that brands that stand for something real and that you can trust. So that level of authenticity is more and more relevant because seeing is no longer believing. Until now, we kept improving the digital representation of travel, and the digital representation of travel is photos, videos, reviews, everything, right? So everything that kind of told you what travel was about. And when we cannot trust that digital representation of travel is no longer real, it poses new threat, new questions. So that representation is now very easy to manufacture. So as information becomes abundant, trust becomes more scarce. Trust becomes more of a competitive advantage that we can build. So trusted brands give travelers confidence that what they're seeing is real. And travel is one of those things that, we're lucky to be in this sector because customers are buying a lived experience. They're not buying, a photo of Santorini or Kyoto or something. They're buying what essentially is the outcome, is to live a very unique experience while you're traveling and to have those interactions that you cannot anticipate when you're planning for a trip. So that is it's a highly durable advantage, right? So you never have somebody coming back from Mexico City and saying, "Oh, I loved the booking flow that allowed me to book this trip." They think about the experiences that they lived there. And that's something that we need to keep in mind, right? So the authenticity, the competitive advantage that travel has in terms of still being grounded in reality, which is the reward of why we do make decisions, why we book things, is still a lived experience, a very real thing. Finally, the last battleground is distribution. We've moved from brands needing to understand or struggle and fight to be discovered, to occupy that space of the digital real estate and Google and meta searches and everything, to having to answer the question of how do I get chosen? And how do I get chosen by humans? How do I get chosen more and more by agents, by AI agents? And that's a very different game. So how do I become the recommendation that digital agents are highlighting or choosing and recommending to humans? So the next optimization will be to target, the machine understanding, right? So yesterday we designed for humans, and to convince people to choose us. More and more we will be designing interfaces to help agents choose us when they're making recommendations. So in that world of increasing importance of AI agents, the concept of deserving demand that I've been talking to increasingly means gaining that recommendation by AI agents, so becoming the recommendation. So I think that some three questions that I think are important to have is, if you turned off, again, this is more for B2C companies, but if you turned off your performance marketing engine, do people come back to? I mean, do people realize that you still exist? Do you have people who love you, in other words, as opposed to people who just happen to click on you? Can your best customers explain why they recommend you in one sentence? And by the way, here there's an interesting thing that a friend of mine did, which was, I'll talk about it later, about the second point. But does your roadmap look like an acquisition machine, or look more like an experience machine, right? So a system optimized to make people come back. On the second thing, in terms of the branding and what people think about your brand, you can do an interesting experiment, which is with a very easy but specific prompt, you ask AI what people think, what the internet, meaning reviews, Reddit, Trustpilot, whatever it is where people are signaling what they think of your brand. Ask them to write it, to draw a caricature of your brand and to draw a caricature of your competition. It is surprisingly accurate, right? And it is much more accurate than what you're saying that your brand is. So that's an interesting experiment that you can make, which will make you discover new things in terms of what people are saying about you, and especially distilled in one sentence or distilled in a list of things that are, again, I was very surprised at how accurate that exercise was. And then just to end up, I mean, technology will keep changing, but the companies that endured will be the ones that earn that trust, that simplify decisions for customers, and that deserve demand by humans and agents. I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to staying here and participating.